I stopped looking in mirrors exactly 3 years ago. It's not a phobia of my own face. It's a phobia of what's standing behind it. I'm 25 now, but back then I had just moved into a cheap basement-level studio. The place was old, damp, and smelled like wet rot. The only thing out of place was a massive, floor-to-ceiling antique mirror in the bathroom. It was beautiful, but heavy, bolted deep into the concrete wall. The first week was normal, but then the timing started to feel off. You know that split second of delay you see in a mirror? It started getting longer. I'd finish brushing my teeth and turn away, but for a microsecond, my reflection would still be standing there, staring at where I used to be. I told myself it was just the dim basement lighting playing tricks on my tired eyes. I was wrong. One night, around 2:45 a.m., I woke up to the sound of water running in the bathroom. I walked in, eyes half closed, and reached for the faucet. As I splashed cold water on my face, I looked up. My reflection was staring at me, but its hands were still down by its sides. I froze. My own heart was hammering against my ribs, but the version of me in the glass looked calm, too calm. Then the reflection did something I will never forget. Without moving its face, it slowly raised its hand and pressed a single, long, skeletal finger against the glass from the inside. But it wasn't my finger. The nails were black, jagged, and several inches long. I felt a sudden freezing cold wind hit the back of my neck, even though there were no windows in the bathroom. I realized then that I wasn't looking at a window. I was looking at a window. And whatever was on the other side was tired of being a shadow. Behind my reflection in the glass, a tall, impossibly thin figure began to emerge from the darkness of my own shower curtain. It had no skin, just charcoal black muscle, and eyes that looked like two burning white pinpricks. It leaned over my reflection's shoulder and whispered something. I couldn't hear it with my ears, but I felt the words crawl inside my brain. Your turn to watch. I didn't pack. I didn't grab my keys. I ran out of that basement in my boxers and never went back. The police found the bathroom mirror shattered from the inside. They also found long, deep scratch marks on the back of the bathroom door, as if something had been trying to claw its way out for a very long time. I used to sleep soundly. Now, I can't sleep without industrial-grade earplugs. It's the only way I can block out the sound of scratching. 2 years ago, I rented an old Victorian-style house that was way too big for just one person. It was cheap because it had settling noises. The landlord told me the scratching in the ceiling was just rats or squirrels looking for warmth. I believed him for the first month. But rats don't scratch in rhythm. It started one night while I was lying in bed staring at the ceiling fan. Scritch, scritch, scritch. 3 distinct scratches right above my head. I held my breath to listen better. The moment I stopped breathing, the scratching stopped too. I exhaled slowly. Scritch, scritch, scritch. It was mimicking my breathing pattern. A cold sweat broke out over my entire body. I grabbed a broom and banged the handle against the ceiling drywall 3 times. Bang, bang, bang. Silence filled the room for about 10 seconds. Then, right above my head, something massive slammed against the attic floorboards with the force of a sledgehammer. Thoom! Dust rained down from the ceiling fan. This wasn't a rat. This was something heavy, something that was angry I had disturbed it. Against my better judgment, I grabbed a flashlight and walked out into the hallway where the small, square attic access hatch was located in the ceiling. I pulled the cord. The stairs creaked down slowly. A foul metallic smell, like old copper pennies and rotten meat, hit me face instantly. I didn't go up. I just pushed the hatch door open a few inches with the tip of the broom and shone the flashlight into the gap. At first, I just saw insulation and dusty beams. Then, in the far corner, where the roof sloped down to meet the floor, I saw it. It was crouched naked in the darkness. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, stretched tight over bones that looked too sharp to be human. Its back was to me, its spine curved upwards like a frightened cat. I couldn't move. I was paralyzed with primal fear. Then, without turning its body, its head slowly rotated a full 180 degrees backwards to look at me. It didn't have eyes, just smooth, empty sockets where eyes should be, but it had a mouth filled with needle-thin teeth that were smiling so wide the corners touched its ears. It didn't scream. It just let out a low, guttural clicking sound from its throat, like bone rubbing against bone. I dropped the flashlight, slammed the hatch shut, and ran out of the house, leaving the front door wide open. I slept in my car at a Walmart parking lot that night. I moved out the next day. I lost my security deposit, but I didn't care. The landlord asked why I was leaving so suddenly. I didn't tell him, because if I told him what was living in his attic, he might have gone up there to check, and nobody deserves to see that thing smile.
I've always been a skeptic. I don't believe in ghosts, and I don't believe in jinn. But after what happened last Tuesday, I've realized that there are things in this world much worse than spirits. There are people who have lost their humanity. I was driving home from a late shift at 2 a.m. on a deserted stretch of highway. It was pouring rain, the kind that makes the road look like a black mirror. About 10 miles from my house, I saw a woman standing by the side of the road. She was drenched, wearing a thin white dress and shivering. Against my better judgment, I pulled over. She didn't say a word. She just pointed at the back seat and climbed in. I figured she was in shock. I started driving, trying to make small talk to ease the tension, but she just stared out the window, her breath fogging up the glass. I happened to glance at my rear-view mirror to check on her. That's when my heart stopped. The woman was sitting in the back left seat, but in the reflection of the mirror, I saw 3 people in the back. There was the woman, and then there were 2 men sitting on either side of her. They were deathly pale, wearing suits that looked decades old, and their eyes, they didn't have eyes, just black, empty holes. I blinked, thinking it was the rain or the exhaustion. I looked back at the actual seat. Only the woman was there. I looked back at the mirror. The two men were now leaning forward, their faces inches away from the back of my head. One of them was holding a long rusted blade against the leather of my headrest. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat felt like it was filled with broken glass. I looked at the woman. She slowly turned her head toward me. Her face began to melt, the skin sliding off her skull like hot wax. She leaned in and whispered in a voice that sounded like grinding stones, "Keep driving, we're almost home." I realized then that I wasn't the driver, I was the prey. They hadn't asked for a ride, they had chosen a vessel. I slammed on the brakes and the car spun out of control, flipping into a ditch. When I woke up, the car was empty. No woman, no men. But when the police pulled the car out of the mud, they found something that made the lead investigator vomit. In the trunk of my car, a trunk I hadn't opened in months, were 3 sets of human remains wrapped in old rotted white cloth. They had been there the whole time. The passengers weren't just in the mirror. They had been underneath me for 100 miles, waiting for the right moment to come out. I don't drive at night anymore, and every time I look in a mirror, I don't check my hair. I check to see who else is standing behind me, waiting for their turn to drive.